On today's episode of What's Up Doc, we're discussing breast cancer. Breast cancer is the most common cancer found in women. 1 in 8 women will be diagnosed with breast cancer in her lifetime. It is found mainly in middle-aged or older women, but there is a recent trend of an increasing incidence of breast cancer being detected in younger women under 45 years. Joining us today to share his knowledge and expertise on breast cancer is Professor Jamil Ali, who is the Director of Women's Health and lead consultant in breast surgical oncology at the St. James Medical Complex.
Today's Vitaminute features vitamin C. Vitamin C plays a major role in controlling infections. Vitamin C may boost immunity by helping white blood cells function more effectively, strengthening your skin's defense system, and helping wounds heal faster. Vitamin C is an important nutrient found in citrus fruits such as oranges, kiwi, lemon, and grapefruit. It is also found in bell peppers, strawberries, tomatoes, vegetables such as broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower, and white potatoes. And that was today's Vitaminute.
Can you tell the viewers out there what are the different forms of breast cancer, first off?
Well, breast cancer, the commonest type is what we call invasive ductal carcinoma. And that is a type of cancer that spreads and can kill. But there are more, less aggressive types of cancers, like in situ cancer, the early forms of cancer. But the killers are the invasive type of cancer. Now, there are other forms of cancer that arise in the different parts of the breast, like the lobules, and that's lobular carcinoma. And it's less common than the invasive type of ductal carcinoma. The ductal carcinoma actually arises in the milk ducts that produce milk in the woman's breast. And that's the commonest type of breast cancer that we have.
What would increase the risk of a woman getting breast cancer, though?
Well, we don't know exactly what causes breast cancer in a particular patient. We do know that there is a genetic predisposition in certain patients, but that's not the main cause of breast cancer. There's a difference between genetic and hereditary cancer. Hereditary cancer is cancer that runs in family without necessarily being associated with a specific gene.
So your mother, your grandmother, your sisters may have it, but you're not necessarily born with a specific gene?
Exactly.
Okay, so that's hereditary.
That's hereditary. But there's also a genetic type of hereditary as well, breast cancer, which is due to abnormality in the genes. People are born with that abnormality in the gene, and they have that predisposition to developing cancer at an early age, and it tends to be a much more aggressive cancer. And in fact, in 2014, we did a study here in Trinidad and Tobago that showed that Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer. Now, in the study, the Bahamas appeared to have a higher risk than Trinidad and Tobago, but that may have some sampling difficulty with it.
So besides the genes, anything else can increase a woman's risk for developing breast cancer?
Well, we know the biggest thing is, apart from the hereditary, which we don't know exactly what in the patient's hereditary background will predispose them to breast cancer. There are dietary, nutritional, and other factors, smoking, obesity. All of these factors can actually increase the risk of breast cancer, like it does in other types of cancers. But to actually identify a specific cause for breast cancer in all patients, we haven't reached that stage yet.
Okay. Would you say chronic stress is also a possible predisposing factor?
It has been touted as probably having some impact, like in many other types of diseases. Stress does seem to play a role, but it's not a major role in breast cancer. It's not.
Okay.
But it has been purported to be one of the factors that can predispose to development of breast cancer.
And how does a woman know that they have breast cancer? How does it normally present?
Most patients who develop breast cancer are asymptomatic. That is, they do not have any complaints specific. And this is why it is so important to be aware of the possibility of developing breast cancer in the community.
Yes.
As you mentioned at the outset, breast cancer is the leading cause of cancer deaths among females, not only all over the world, but particularly in Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean. In fact, we are doing a study right now to identify what specifically are the factors that make our women more predisposed to a very, very virulent form of breast cancer. And so it is a very common cause. And whenever we have a disease that is prevalent in the community, especially when it doesn't have specific presenting symptoms and signs, it is to our benefit to try and make the diagnosis early. Because the most important determinant of outcome in cancer, particularly breast cancer, is making the diagnosis as early as possible. And that means you need to screen the population to pick up the cancer before it becomes overt and obvious to the patients and their family. So a lump is something that would cause people to know that there's something wrong with their breast. But most of the early cancers that have the highest prognosis, best prognosis, are cancers that develop without a lump being detected in the patient. When a lump is detected, then we can pursue certain tests to make the diagnosis. One form of cancer, for instance, presents where there's no lump. And that may present where there's an abnormality that is detected in the mammogram.
Okay.
And one of these manifestations is a certain pattern of calcium deposits within the breast, microcalcifications. And one of the benefits of doing early mammography and screening is to pick it up before it becomes a lump.
Because sometimes that's too late when it reaches the size of a lump. By the time a patient presents with a lump in the breast that is a cancer, we think that the cancer has been there for at least a year or several months. And we should try to pick up the cancer in the earliest phase possible so that we can have a better outcome in these patients. What about nipple discharge? Would they have any issues with discharge or even skin discoloration or dimpling?
Well, nipple discharge is ubiquitous. Everybody has some form of discharge from the nipple, from the secretions that naturally takes place from the breast. But pathological discharge is discharge that can represent an abnormality in the breast that's non-physiologic, not related just to your normal secretions. And if we have a patient who develops discharge that is bloody, persistent, and spontaneous, that type of discharge needs to be investigated very closely to rule out an underlying breast cancer. Most of them are picked up early enough that the outcome is very, very good. But if you don't pay attention to it, then you can again make the diagnosis later and the outcome will be worse. So nipple discharge is one of the features that you look for in terms of the presentation of breast cancer. And what we look for is bloody discharge, spontaneous discharge. Those are the things that we look for.
Any skin changes that a patient
Skin
may
changes are
observe?
very late signs of breast cancer. There's a type of cancer that presents with changes in the periareolar area near the nipple, and that's called Paget's disease of the nipple. And that can represent an underlying invasive ductal carcinoma in the breast. But most of the time, patients don't present with skin changes. Now, there's another form of breast cancer that's very, very aggressive, and it's very, very difficult to diagnose, and it goes unnoticed many of the times because a lot of patients look at it and they think it's just a mild inflammation or infection, and that is called inflammatory breast cancer. Yeah. And so if somebody develops a sudden onset of redness and thickening of the skin, not necessarily with itchiness. Itchiness is more common in the Paget's disease of the nipple. But in the inflammatory breast cancer, it frequently presents with a discoloration of the nipple, quite marked. And most of the time people think, well, it's just a little inflammation, we could give them some antibiotics and see if it'll help. It can be sometimes difficult to differentiate that type of cancer from an inflammatory process. Okay. And usually what we'll do is try them on some topical agents or antibiotic, and if it doesn't promptly clear up within a matter of weeks, then you should consider the possibility of inflammatory breast cancer, which is another very, very form of aggressive breast cancer.
So tell me, in terms of screening, because you said that's the key.
Yes.
The key is consistent and regular screening for breast cancer. What does that entail? What should every woman know? And what age do we start?
Unfortunately, there's a lot of controversy and there's lack of uniformity in terms of where it should start. But everyone recognizes that at some point we should start assessing the patient for the possible presence of that disease.
You're doing all this research. Tell us what you think from your clinical point of view.
Most of us believe that over 40, all right? But some people start at 40 to 45, other 45. Some people go as late as 50. So that's where the controversy arises. But it's usually in our community 45 to 50 years age. We recommend that you have at least a baseline mammography, and then go from there. And initially in the 45 to 55 range, you usually have your screening mammograms about once yearly. And then after 55 and going on between 55 and 74 years old, there's some thought that perhaps what you should do is decrease it to about every other year. So those are the sort of parameters that we are looking at. Okay. But there's no, significant one way in which they screen. But screening is done, the only difference is the frequency and the age at which you start.
Right.
I tend to recommend in my patients that they start at least 45 years of age.
Yeah.
Okay?
I recommend to mine 40.
Yes.
I'm just seeing them way more earlier. And it makes me worried.
Yes. Well, you see, the other thing is you have to be very careful about the genetic form of breast cancer. That occurs much, much earlier, in the late 20s or early 30s.
That's right.
And it tends to have a very high risk of family members having.
So let's say I have a mom and a sister, and a strong genetic component in my family for breast cancer. Yes. Should I start screening in my 20s, at 25?
Someone who has a history of genetic breast cancer in the past, they should start in their 20s. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the problems with the 20s, the breast is so dense that mammography can miss the diagnosis. So then you have to use other means like MRIs and so on. For the genetic breast cancer, if you have a patient who comes from a family with a high risk, early age of breast cancer in the 20s, 30s, family members, pancreatic cancer, prostate cancer, ovarian cancer, these patients should be screened much earlier. And the best means to determine whether they have genetic breast cancer, the ones that we are familiar with, is to do genetic screening.
Yes, and you do that at St. James?
Well, we don't have a center in Trinidad that actually does the actual testing, but we collect the specimens, either from blood or from saliva, and we send it abroad. And it takes about 4 weeks or so to get the diagnosis, and it costs now about $250 US. And that's a much lower cost than it used to be in the past. It used to be much higher. So we are getting more and more patients screened with genetic screening. If a member of your patient actually has genetic breast cancer, then you have to check all the first-degree relatives as well,
Yes.
to make sure they don't have it, because there's in the direct relatives there's over 40 to 50% chance that they will carry the gene for that breast cancer. So, and of course, what do you do if you develop genetic breast cancer and you find it? Apart from screening the family, you have to be aggressive in treating that breast cancer before it becomes metastatic and kills the patient.
Prof, before we leave, if there's one last piece of advice you want to give the viewers out there, a take-home message concerning breast cancer, what would that be?
As far as I'm concerned, look at yourself and look at your family history. Your lifestyle, the types of food you eat, and so on, that's very important. But be very, very careful about initiating screening at an early age so that you'll pick up the disease earlier. And also, I want to say, especially in Trinidad, beware of treatments that are out there that are not scientifically proven, because we see a lot of that in Trinidad and Tobago.
So
And
screening saves lives and it saves money.
Yes, yes.
Thank you so much, Prof.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
Have we taken into account the experiences of those who have received a devastating diagnosis but persevered, fought, and are survivors today? I welcome Ms. Sally Babulal, a brave woman who was diagnosed with breast cancer. She will share with us her experience of a life-changing journey.
When you get diagnosed, more often than not, you have no experience, none, with this disease.